And then they saw me in a bra, and that was it.
What's going on, Pearl Jam nerds? I'm Brad Lyons.
And I'm Brad Blazek.
And you are listening to Single Podcast Theory. This is our first episode, and we just want to kind of give an opportunity for you guys to get to know each of us as we are getting to know each other, because this is kind of a cool story, actually, how Brad and I met. Brad, we've known each other for a week and a half, 3 weeks,
4 weeks maybe.
Man, and we've probably only actually we've texted a ton, but
yeah.
We've only talked on the phone a couple times. But I will say that the first time I called you, we did talk for an hour about Pearl Jam, which was a really good sign for doing this podcast together.
It felt really comfortable from the jump.
Yeah,
which is amazing because I have a hard time meeting people and talking to people, and it was crazy how comfortable it was. But that's Pearl Jam.
Maybe I was about to say, maybe that's the thing is I have a lot of social anxiety as well.
Yeah.
And I actually put off calling you a couple days just because I was nervous.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you have something, and this could be anything, but for us it's Pearl Jam. When you have something that you love and are connected to, it makes it a lot easier to connect with other people through that thing,
Definitely.
And that's also, not to sound cheesy, but that's kind of also the hope for this podcast, is kind of widening the net for opportunities for people in the Pearl Jam fandom or community to be able to find another kind of touch point to build the community even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if two people share that passion for anything, that's your jumping off point, that can lead to, bigger and better conversations about all kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you feel this way. I don't even know. Are we about the same age? I'm older than you, right?
I just turned 42 in May.
Okay, so I'm 39, right on.
Okay,
so we both come from a generation of Pearl Jam fans that we were both there from the beginning, right?
Right, yeah.
And I don't mean that like we're better, you know what I mean?
No.
It's just, I was born at a time where when that first record came out, I was in, God, how old would I have been? That was 91, so I would have been 13 years old.
Yeah.
But it's funny when I listen to it. My point in all this is that it gets harder as I get older to find Pearl Jam fans around me.
Definitely.
Because the caricature of that band, and especially Eddie Vedder, has kind of stuck. And I think the younger generations, and it's great because they do have younger fans coming to shows.
Right.
But, it's that whole Scott Stapp thing. Right.
And that's people that haven't been there from the beginning or the first few years. That's the caricature. That's all they know.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't they do a celebrity death match that was literally Eddie Vedder and Scott Stapp?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So the point being that I'm selfishly wanting to do this. Not only have I found someone to talk to Pearl Jam about and put it out to people, but it's going to be an opportunity through whether it's forums or email or social media to kind of get to know other people across the country or across the world.
Right.
And that kind of brings us to how you and I met, actually. It's a good segue because my best friend just started, they've been going for 6 or 7 months, started.
I think it was the first week or first whatever in January
of
this
cool.
year.
There you go. So my best friend Clinton Wells and another good friend of mine, Ethan Luck, started a Metallica podcast. And Metallica is one of my other favorite bands of all time.
Mine too.
Obviously for the story I'm about to tell. But
right.
So Clint and I are both, I don't know how to say it without sounding douchey, but we're both professional musicians. That's how we make a living, is either going out on the road, getting hired to play for people, or we both write songs. Clint's an insane songwriter, but I spend a lot of my time now producing records for bands, and this awesome studio that I have the privilege of working in here in Birmingham, Alabama. But you, like you said, are a huge Pearl Jam fan. I mean, Metallica fan. So you've been digging into the Metal Up Your podcast.
Right.
And do you want to kind of like take over, and because
Sure.
this kind of segues into how we met?
Yeah, I found out about the podcast a few months ago, and just really dug it from the beginning. And I had tickets to go see Metallica in St. Louis in June, and Metallica runs a contest to win what they call the Snake Pit. You win Snake Pit passes,
Right.
and unbelievably, I won passes.
That's so
And
cool.
my best friend lives in Oklahoma. I'm in Tennessee, and there was no way he could make it. So I reached out to Clint and Ethan through email and just told them, hey, first of all, I'm super excited I won these passes. And second of all, if either one of you can make it, you can have my +1 Snake Pit ticket.
Which I'm going to stop you right there.
Sure.
That is so cool that you were willing to do that. I just want to say.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I knew they would love it. They're obviously huge fans. And,
Sure.
I think Ethan was in Europe, but Clint got back to me within like 20 minutes, and he was just from the start. He was like, it might work out that I'm on tour, but we're coming back the night before, and we're actually going through St. Louis the morning of.
Right.
And long story short, we met up that morning. His bus dropped him off, and we just had a great time. I'd never met him. I talked to him once or twice through email, and we became, I would say, pretty good friends.
Yeah.
Within a 48-hour period. We spent the day together. We went to the show. We stayed overnight in St. Louis, and then because his bus dropped him off, I drove him back to Nashville, and we ended up staying overnight in Nashville and hanging out the whole next day.
Dude, that's so cool.
So yeah, I mean, it
Well,
was really cool.
And I will say to you too, so this, I'll take the story back over, because I've been working on trying to get a podcast together for a while for Pearl Jam, because at the end of the day, they are my favorite band, right?
Yeah.
And we'll have countless episodes to talk about why they're my favorite band. But, I was talking to Clint, I texted him, I was like, man, I need to find a partner to do this that's like, that can do it every week and blah, 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 which is a tall order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you got to really want to do it. Especially, you got, if you got kids at home and you got a job and work life and a relationship and all this stuff. And he was like, I'm calling you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. He called me back, and he's like, just hear me out, dude. You don't know this guy. But he's my bud. We've gotten to be buds. And he's like the guy, Brad, that picked me up in St. Louis for the Metallica show. I was like, yeah. He was like, he's a huge Pearl Jam fan. He had mentioned to me that he was thinking about starting a Pearl Jam podcast. And I told him, sorry, dude, my buddy Brad's already got one in the works or whatever. And it worked out that, I needed somebody. The other person is a really good friend of mine, and it just didn't work out. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. So I called you up, and that's when we talked an hour for the phone. I was like, this is totally going to work. So
yeah, it's funny because I remember we were waiting after the show for an Uber to come and get us. And that's when we started talking about Pearl Jam. And he mentioned you in the podcast. And I died a little inside because I was like, I've been toying with the idea of trying to start it up, and I don't even know where to start, and I don't know anybody else that could do it with me. And within, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks, he texted me and said basically what you just said. So
now here we are. And so
here we are.
that's just another example of like what the communities can do, and even across bands. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this all came about from a Metallica podcast, but
Right.
now we get to do a Pearl Jam podcast. I never, ever, ever would have met you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We live very, well, as far as I can tell, we live very different lives. You know what I mean? I mean, we
Yeah.
literally don't live in the same place. We're in
Right.
completely different states. But anyway, that's just another example of, I hope there's more of that to come through this podcast.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear from fans, you know, and their experiences with what we're talking about, you know, and being a fan for X amount of time and going to shows and meeting people. You know, it's like you said, the fan bases are very similar. If you go on each band's boards or Facebook pages or Reddit, you know, there's a lot of passionate people out there that are you know, really cool when you get to talk to them.
Yeah, well, and I can't wait to explore that stuff. I've always been a little shy on doing that kind of stuff, and now this is going to kind of force me into engaging a little bit more.
Definitely.
I can tend to be kind of hermit-like, and I just want to sit in a room with really good speakers or headphones and listen to the records. You know what I mean? But just
Well, there's something to be said to going to a Pearl Jam show at 4 a.m, the day of the show, and there's 40 or 50 people already in line.
Oh yeah,
and
dude.
You're all there for this one singular thing that if you're there at 4 a.m, you have a passion for this band, and
Right.
it makes it a lot easier to come out of your shell and talk about that.
Well, there's
passion.
just an automatic kinship there, I think.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And you know, so we don't want to make this episode too long. We both, I think one thing I can tell, I know this about myself, but I'm just going to make this observation about Brad, and he can tell me if I'm right or wrong. When we are passionate, we can tend to be quiet people, socially or whatever, but when we are passionate about something, we can talk forever.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. We're both
yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try and keep it on the rails for this kind of introduction episode, but I did also want to say, like, you know, I think it'd be good for us to kind of quickly share how we got into the band. You know what
Sure.
I mean? Like how we discovered them. So for me, it was was I in 7th grade in 91? I believe I was, because I believe I was in science class. And a buddy of mine, you know, just for context too, for the younger fans, you know, we were just coming out of a phase of a lot of like hair metal, and when you're a kid that's, you know, in my example, middle school, that loved music, you just kind of love music and you don't really know what your tastes are quite yet, if that makes any sense. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I listened to back then that I remember in the back of my head going, is this cool? And now I know that it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, some of those bands were, you know, they were hot and heavy for a quick minute, and then
Sure.
you never heard of them again.
Well, and just that whole genre just started to burn out, and it was a perfect time for the quote-unquote Seattle stuff to happen, right? So,
Oh yeah.
For me, it was I'd gotten into Metallica already. So the turn that kind of took me was Metallica was already around right before Pearl Jam, and I'd been introduced to Led Zeppelin, and those were the kind of the bands. There's some others too, but just off the top of my head to make it quick, those are the bands that made me. That's when I got into drums. I was like, I'm gonna be a drummer, right? And then a buddy of mine that he was kind of my connection to metal music. Walked into Science and he had, you know, 10 on CD, and he handed it to me and was like, you got to check this out. And I'd already been into Nirvana with Bleach and stuff like that, and I listened to it. I was just like, this, for me, seems so different, but there's something familiar about it. And there was something emotive in Eddie's voice that I latched onto right away. And, you know, our first episode is going to be about 10, so I won't go deep into that. We'll save it for that episode. But it just, more than any other band, like, I love Zeppelin. They're one of the reasons why I make music. But there's nothing lyrically for me to grab onto. And I think that was the big difference for me with Pearl Jam, was just Eddie's lyrics and the gut-wrenching vocals. And I don't know, it's one of those things that just struck with me. And I was a drummer, like I said, and my first band, just to show you how big of Pearl Jam nerds my band was when I was 15, our first show, my first time ever playing live, was connected to this church that I went to, and they let us use their instruments to practice. And we had a show where we got to play 5 songs, right? These were the 5 songs. Plush, Stone Temple Pilots, Animal, Pearl Jam. Before Versus came out, we learned it we had recorded them playing on the VMAs on VHS and learned the song from that.
Oh, wow.
And we thought we were so cool because, and I still think we were pretty fucking cool for doing that. But anyway, we did a Driving and Crying song, and then we did Rockin' in the Free World, Pearl Jam cover.
Right.
And we did I've Got a Feeling, Pearl Jam cover.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty good set list.
It was, and the other funny part was, I guess it was 6 songs because we did Cocaine, Eric Clapton.
Oh God,
and
no.
Well, just
at 15 or 16.
It's just such a simple song,
Right.
and luckily, I don't really care, but the youth pastor that was kind of putting it on was like, now what's your set list again? And we said Cocaine. He's like, yeah, you're gonna sing Propane tonight,
Right.
not Cocaine. And I'm like, wait, that's way more dangerous to do Propane than Cocaine. So that was kind of like, that's how it all started for me, and I just kind of never looked back with that band since then.
Now, please tell me there's video of this somewhere.
Oh yeah, dude, I'll have to dig it out.
Yeah, I've got to see this.
Well, I mean, we'll have to transfer it from the camcorder or whatever, but
Right.
my parents definitely have it. So,
Oh,
what
that's
about you,
cool.
man? How'd it happen?
It's funny listening to you. There's some like huge similarities, and then there's some not similarities. My background with bands and music was when I was in 7th, 8th grade, freshman year. I was all about Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses.
Oh yeah, dude.
And I also started playing the drums because of Rick Allen from Def Leppard.
Hell yeah.
If people don't know, he lost an arm in the early 80s and still continued to play with like a special electronic drum kit. And I thought, well, if he can do it with one arm, surely I can play. And so I was heavy into Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses, and a lot of the hair bands that you're talking about, I was into them too.
Right.
So when the whole grunge thing happened, I was like, I'm metal. I don't listen to that crap.
Right.
I'm a metal kid.
I get that, yeah.
I listened to Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard. I thought that was, the height of metal.
Right.
And I had to be a sophomore in 91.
Okay. That sounds right.
And the kid that was like the most metal kid, he said in class one day, I overheard him talking to somebody else, and they were talking about going to concerts, and he said, you know who sounds or looks like they'd be great in concert? And I'm thinking he's about to bust out with Deicide or Cannibal Corpse.
Right.
He says Pearl Jam, and I was floored, and I was like, that guy likes that band?
Did it give Pearl Jam a little bit of cred though because it came from him?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, cool.
I was like, I'm gonna check these guys out because I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are metal if he likes them. And went home. MTV was still playing videos at that time, and Even Flow was out, and I just was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then I realized that I had a summer job at Great America, Six Flags.
Yeah.
And this is when I lived up north near Chicago. But we had tapes that we would listen to. And one of the tapes was Temple of the Dog.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. And one was the single soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize at the time that that's what I was listening to. As essentially, Grunge 101
yeah,
was
absolutely.
on those 2 tapes. So I got 10, got really into it, borrowed the single soundtrack and dubbed it, and made copies of the whole thing. And I was like, I think it was Stay Love and Trust was on side 1 and Breath was on side 2. And I never looked back. It was,
hell yeah, man.
It was on.
And especially those 2 tracks, man.
Right.
They're,
oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess I'm glad they didn't make it on 10, but and they kind of live in their own little special world. But those are two. I love those songs. Those are not like throwaway B-sides for me at all.
No, and Breath especially. Like
Yeah.
that's up there with my favorite songs by them. But State of Love and Trust is amazing too, and it's kind of like it's two perfect tracks to introduce you to Pearl Jam, because State of Love and Trust is just flat out just rocks.
Yeah.
And then Breath is like way more.
It's like grooves. It's
yeah,
like it's a little bit more open, but it's still rock. You know what I mean?
And the lyrics are pretty emotional. You know, I mean, if I knew where it was, I'd take you there. It's like, come on, man,
dude. We're gonna be. I have a feeling we're gonna be quoting many lines like that over the episode. So
but I mean, you fast forward to nowadays. With me, anyway. I always thought, you know, I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan. I'm a super fan. I listen to all their stuff. I've seen them 4 times, and you know, I kind of stopped going to shows altogether. I go to a lot of different bands, but I stopped going altogether for about 10 years because got married, had kids, and that kind of stuff.
Life happens.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Cubs fan. And when they announced in 2013 they were playing at Wrigley Field, and you know, and I know Eddie is a Cubs fan and he's from up north.
Right.
I'm like, there's no way I can't go to that show.
Hell yeah.
And then I saw them again a year later, and then I saw them last year in Lexington and Wrigley Field again, both nights. And I'll tell you, I've realized I am not a super fan. I am maybe not a regular fan, but these people go deep. I mean, I've met people that have seen them over 100 times.
Yeah, man.
I've seen people that have seen them 30 or 40 times. I'm at 9 times. I thought that was a lot. And, you know, and these people.
Well, it is a lot, though. I mean, and that's the whole thing, too. That's another perfect segue to something I wanted to get to on this intro episode, is that neither one of us are doing this because we think we are the authorities or Pearl Jam historians. Like, there's going to be stuff that we don't know, or our mind's blank, or we just totally fucking get wrong. And it's cool, man. Like, we're here to like create a platform for all of us to kind of to talk again, like whether it's email, social media, whatever it is, like. This is just here to share with everybody, right. And this is not us at the top of the hierarchy looking down at all the other Pearl Jam fans.
I mean, I think I speak for you when I say we're no experts on them.
No.
You know, but it's kind of cool that if this can be a middle ground, we can, you know, if the super fans, you know, can correct us on stuff or give us information that we don't have. And on the flip side, maybe we can bring some new people in that aren't huge into them, and this will bring them back in or get them in altogether.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm so excited, dude.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
Well, let's wrap up this first one, but we definitely don't want to leave before we give everyone our contact info. So you can reach us by email, Brad and Brad. We will both be getting these emails. So our email is singlepodcasttheory@gmail.com. Our Twitter handle is Pearl Jam Podcast, but you can search Single Podcast Theory and it'll come up either way. Our Instagram handle is @Single Podcast Theory. And then you can search us on Facebook as well by the title Single Podcast Theory. All right? You're going to be the Facebook guy. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I'm please don't judge me. I'm a little more attuned with Facebook than like Instagram and Twitter, but
sure.
You know, emails, you know, let's talk.
That's why we're a duo, dude, because I'm down with the Instagram and Twitter, and you're down with the Facebook, and we both know how to use email because we're not idiots. So there you go. We've got it all covered, man. Yeah, I mean, I created an AOL.com email, so you can check that out too. Okay, awesome. No, I'm just joking. Okay, good, because I was about to make fun of you so hard when we stopped recording. Did you get that with your Hotmail as well? Yeah. I downloaded Explorer last night. I'm hearing those dial-up modem sounds in my head right now from when I was a kid. Do you want to mention what the old Twitter handle was? Yeah, in case someone's, yeah, okay, that's cool, man. Yeah, it was, I think I was really tired or something, whatever.
Yeah.
But single podcast theory wouldn't fit. They won't let you have that many characters for a Twitter handle, so I put at PJ_PCast.
PCast.
Because we're PCasting.
Right.
And rightfully so.
It just rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is why I'm not a marketer. This is why I make music for a living. But, all right, we're going to sign off here. And hopefully, if you've made it through this episode, you're going to catch up with us on the next one, which is going to be the 10 episode. So check it out. And we will see you next time. This is Brad Lyons.
And Brad Blazek.
Signing off.
I died and you just I died and you watched. I died and you walked by and said no. I'm dead.